Ooh, what do we got here, baby? What is in these boxes? Hey guys, what's going on? You can see what I got here in the garage bay behind me. It's the Raptor 700. So we're going to be getting to breaking this thing down pretty soon. This is part 2 of the motor build for the Raptor. For those of you guys that have been following, you know what's going on. And for newcomers, the crank in this Raptor is bad, so we're going to be swapping that out for a new one. When I get inside the motor and see what's in there, we'll be ordering top end for that too, and any other parts that need to be replaced. Now we did get some new parts in the mail, but before I get to that, I want to answer some of your guys' questions. You guys are going crazy, and so am I. Everybody wants to know what the heck happened to the Banshee. For all y'all that have watched the riding videos, part 1 and 2, thank you for watching. I spent a lot of time editing those. It was a lot of fun riding and stuff. And, you know, the cat's out of the bag now. The Banshee blew up. It's surprising to me that that top end even lasted as long as it did, especially because I was screaming down those roads. And I also had a moment when I first built that engine that the motor dieseled for about a minute, probably 50, 60 seconds of like 10,000 RPM screaming. I thought the pistons would have melted from that. So those things lasted pretty long for what they were. That was the $100 kit from eBay, and I didn't buy that just because I wanted to do a budget project. That was a test so that if you guys decide to buy a top-end kit, because they mass produce those things to the max. I mean, there are so many different vendors that sell those Banshee kits. People are definitely buying them, so I figured I'd make a review video on that, which will be coming as soon as I get that top end off to see what the aftermath is and what's going inside of those cylinders. Alright, so now that the air's cleared with that, let's see what we got in these boxes. Gaskets. Well, that's not very exciting. Always nice to get some stickers. Hot rods, hot cams. Everything's so freaking hot. Man, this thing's packed well. Alright, so there it is. Came in a very nice box. And of course, we have our main bearing right here. Now this didn't come with this kit, so if you are buying a Hot Rods, they say complete crankshaft assembly, it does not come with the main bearing, at least not with the Raptor 700. I think with some of their other assemblies they are included, but not with this one. Then we got our gasket kit there. I mean, really not too exciting. It's a crank. It feels very nice, it looks very nice, and hopefully it'll make the quad run very nice too. Plus it came with 3 stickers, and I love stickers, so this was a great kit to buy. Now if you guys remember, I had ordered this crank from a website that seemed a little iffy, and I wasn't really sure if this thing was going to come in the mail. That's not where this crank came from. So what's going on with that is I called the company to check to see if they even received my order, what the status is on it, if it's being shipped and stuff like that. And I mean, surprisingly they answered the phone, because if you read through the reviews, most people say that they just don't answer the phone. But I was able to get a hold of them, and they found the order number, and it was on back order. So they told me it's not going to ship out until the 4th of July, which is like 15 days after when I initially called them. And I said, okay, so is it going to come to me on the 4th? They said, no, it's being shipped to them on the 4th. So it's going to be shipped to them on the 4th, shipped out to them on the 4th, so it'll probably get to them by maybe the 10th, and then they have to ship it to me. So it's probably not going to be here till, you know, mid-end July. I'm not going to wait till Christmas for that thing to come, so it looks like it's kind of difficult to cancel an order with them, and you might have trouble getting your money back. So I'm just going to wait, see if that one comes in the mail, and then I'll resell that on eBay, because it was about $100 cheaper than any other place that I could find. So we'll take care of that on another note. This one came from another place, shipped within 3 days to my house, not shipping to them in 3 days and stuff. So super happy about that. Let's get the oil out of this Raptor. Alright, so while the oil's draining, I'm going to pop my chain off, and I might start taking off our fuel injection system, and then by then pretty much all the oil should be drained. It looks like it's almost all drained now, it's just dripping a little bit. Then I'll go for our coolant. We'll get all our fluids out of the motor. And I'm just going to slowly start taking it down piece by piece, get the wire harness off, stuff like that. And I'm going to try to get this motor pulled today. Well, lucky me, there's no master link on this chain. So it's possible that this is the original OEM chain that came with the quad, which it's probably time for replacing, especially on a quad like a Raptor 700, which is so torquey. So I'm just going to take bolt cutters and chop this thing off, throw it in the scrap bin, and I'm going to go ahead and buy a brand new chain for it. Now I could save this chain. It is possible to get it off without just cutting it off, but at this point I really don't think that's a good idea. The last thing I need is for this chain to break after I go through the hassle of rebuilding the motor and everything, slap up against this case, get a broken case, you know, right after doing all that work. So I'm just going to go ahead and order a new chain for it, and for now we'll just cut this one off. Alright, let's get this throttle body off. So I ended up taking off the wire harness first. You can see why though, that really opened up a lot of space. It's going to make it a lot easier to take this off. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to take it off entirely. I don't feel like taking the throttle cable off and doing unnecessary work. So I'm probably going to leave our fuel hose on, and I'm just going to take these two lines off right here so that I can take this throttle body off and just kind of drape it over the frame. God damn it. Jesus Christ. Well, I actually forgot coolant runs through these throttle bodies. It's a temperature sensor that's primarily for helping with cold starts and warming the quad up. And completely forgot about that. So we're actually going to drain the radiator fluid first, and then we'll take the throttle body off. All right, so draining the coolant in a Raptor 700 is pretty simple. We're just going to crack this drain bolt loose right here with an 8mm socket. It should start leaking out. And then I'm just going to crack loose our radiator cap. And now that that's drained, we're just going to throw our bolt back in. And while I'm at it, and I've got this pan here, might as well take off my radiator hoses. Now we can take off these temperature sensor lines. So now this throttle body should come off pretty easy. Just have to loosen up these two band clamps. I'm going to take off the boot and everything, and I'm not going to take off the throttle cable. Pretty sure that's all adjusted nicely, and I don't feel like messing with the throttle body right now. So I'm just going to see if I can fit it through this gap right here, and then I'm just going to sling it over the front, and that way I can just throw it right back on once I finish up with the motor. Okay, so I couldn't fit through this gap right here, so I just slung it over the top, got it out of the way. So now we'll take our clutch cable off, And don't forget your spark plug wire. Okay, so now that we have that stuff off, we got to take off our oil lines. So you have two lines running right next to each other under here. The one comes off with an 8mm bolt, and then there's one underneath. I don't know if you can see it, it's a little dark, but it's right up under here. And it takes a 19mm wrench, and I don't have that, so I'm gonna use a 3/4, which fits on there pretty nicely. And then I'm gonna go ahead and remove these two 10mm bolts on both sides of the oil tank and just get that out of there, only so it doesn't get dented up, and it'll give me a little bit more room when I'm pulling out the motor. And then there's one hose on top of the oil tank too. This is just clamped on, so we'll just pull that off. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this shifter while I'm at it. That was pretty tight. And the last thing attached to our motor besides the motor mounts is our reverse cable, which is right here. So we're just going to pull this cable out. And I'm going to pull the lever off too, because I don't want that getting bent. I also want to take off this brake light switch, just because this bracket is really thin and it can be bent. So if I leave that hooked up, I mean, I could just take the spring off, and technically it wouldn't be attached to the frame anymore. It's attached to the motor with two 8mm bolts. But that's another thing that's susceptible to bending when you put the motor down. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that off, and the wire is up here. It feeds right through here. And I think I can feed this wire. In fact, I'll do it right now. Yeah, so that wire just feeds right through. So there's another wire loom down here that this wire has to be pulled through. And then you should be able to pull this right through the back. And there is your cable. Looks like I got some fluid on it. Alright, so we got all the tiny stuff off. Now all we got left is the motor mounts. Okay, so this motor's held on by 4 points. You have up here, motor mount on the top head, motor mount in the front of the case here. And then if you guys can see underneath here, beyond that hose, there's a bolt under there. And then the infamous swing arm bolt. You guys know, if you ever take one of these out, dirt bike or quad, a lot of times these swing arms put grooves in the swing arm bolt, and they're a bitch to get out. So I'm hoping that this thing pops right through. What I like to do is leave all these other points nice and tight, and that way when I loosen this up, the motor should be nice and snug and not wiggle around, and this will fly right through. If it's stuck, I might have to loosen the other motor mounts up and then kind of wiggle the motor and tap and spin this bolt. Sometimes that's a two-person job in order to free this up. But let's pray here, you know, cross our fingers, hope to God that this thing just kind of pushes right through. And one other thing I wanted to point out, I don't even think I have to take the foot pegs off. This thing's got a lot of room around it. Usually quads, you have to remove the foot pegs in order to pull the motor, but I should be able to pull it out this side, no problem. Keep in mind, guys, I'm not following the manual to pull this motor. I'm kind of doing it my way, and then I'll refer to the manual when I get to spots that I'm not really that sure of.
So what I'm doing here is throwing some jack stands under the back of the frame so that we have a more stable base to work with. And also, in the case that the swing arm detaches from the frame after the swing arm bolt is punched through, the frame won't fall on the ground.
Alright, now I'm going to start off tapping this thing lightly see if it moves, and then we'll take it from there. You want to be really careful not to mushroom this edge or screw up your threads, because then you're just asking for more work. This thing is pretty stuck in there. It's not budging at all, and I'm smacking it pretty good with the sledgehammer. So before I go ruining the bolt, I threw some PP Blaster on there and I'm gonna let that soak for a little bit. You wouldn't believe what just a little bit of oil can do to make your life easier. Sometimes you throw that in there and you smack it again and it pops right out. Really, that's the first thing I should have done. What I decided to do is I'm gonna take off all the other motor mounts, and then I'm gonna throw a jack underneath the motor so that I can lift it up just gently so that I can compensate for those grooves in the swing arm bolt. Before I take this last motor mount off, I'm going to take this jack and just put a little bit of pressure up under this flat spot in the front of the case. I just want to take the pressure off of the motor so that when I take this bolt out, the motor doesn't flop down and hit against the frame rails or anything like that. This motor is floating now. Well, it's kind of on a hinge on the swing arm bolt. So what I can do is move this motor up and down with the jack and see if I can get the swing arm bolt to kind of come loose. Haha, it's moving. All right, once it's moving, it's game over. That thing's coming out. All right, so I don't know if you guys saw, but once the swing arm bolt came through the motor, it kind of dropped down and now the motor's free. So I don't think I have to pull the swing arm back. I think this motor can tilt forward. There's plenty of space up here, and it'll come up out of the swing arm, and I should be able to pull it right through the side of the motor. Of course, it's always easier said than done, and this motor's probably pretty freaking heavy. And I got this box right here. I'm gonna lay the motor right in. Got some cardboard padding at the bottom. It'll probably kind of crush its way into that box, but it'll be a nice spot to keep it until we take the head off. There it is. Nice and empty. Something's missing, right? Boom. So that wasn't as easy or as hard as I thought it was going to be. You know, it wasn't too difficult. I had to jimmy it a little bit, and then as soon as I got the right angle, it kind of popped right out. This motor's pretty heavy, but it's not that bad once you get a good grip on it. So I'm going to go ahead and smack the swing arm bolt back through and take the jack stands out. That way this thing can be wheeled around in the meantime while I'm building the motor. I have our wire harness, our hoses, and all stuff like that kind of draped over the front and just pushed out of the way just to make it easier for when we put the motor back in, and it made it easier for taking the motor out too. Alright guys, so it really wasn't that bad pulling that motor out of there. Stick around. What we're going to be doing next is pulling off the cylinder and the head. We'll see what's going on in there, measure the cylinder so we can order the right size piston. I think I'm going to go with a CP 11-to-1 compression piston, only because CP is supposed to be top notch. I'm hearing that from you guys and from guys on Raptor forum. Might as well spend the extra money, get a nice piston. So that's most likely what's going to be going in there. Just want to make sure we get the right size. Also guys, while you're waiting for the next video, in the meantime, you can check out my Facebook page and my Instagram. I like to post pictures up there on things that I'm doing, usually with the quads, going riding, what I'm working on. And I also like to post on my Facebook page specifically what videos are coming soon and what I'm working on. So that way, when you're sitting and waiting, you know what's going on behind the scenes. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Happy July 4th, and God bless America. I'll see you in the next one.